Okay, good morning, everyone. Today is the 13th day of Teves, Monday, beautiful Monday morning. Welcome to our guests. Welcome, everyone. We had a beautiful meeting today, Baruch Hashem. And today we are learning Perek Yud Aleph, chapter 11 in Tanya. If you're following along in the Chayenu, we're on page 80. And just to give a little background, Tanya is called Sefer Shel Beinanim, which means loosely the average person. But that's an understatement, because a Beinani is somebody who never acts or speaks or even thinks anything evil other than focusing his energies towards God. However, he has the temptations, the desires, and the struggles. And that's what we call him, the average guy that, deals with this kind of stuff. That's a very high level, as we explained. Then we talked about yesterday and the day before, we talked about the level of a tzaddik. Yesterday, we finished off by saying that there's two different levels of a tzaddik, generally speaking, because there are many levels that we don't even touch on. But just on a basic, general overview, is that one is that the tzaddik completely vanquished and destroyed and subjugated his Yetzer Hara, his Nefesh Bahamis. He has no desire to do anything but fulfill God's will. And then the second level, maybe a lower level, is that he has him completely in his power. Yetzer Hara and the Nefesh Bahamis have no power over him, cannot rule over him in any way, but it's still there. Today we talk about the Rasha. And the Rasha you always think of as the evil, the wicked. We're going to try to give a little bit more context here. Second. Okay. So why are we talking about the Rasha if it's a Sefer Shel Beinanim? It's the Sefer of a person who's the average person struggling to do the right thing, to think the right thing, to say the right thing, fulfill everything that Hashem wants. Alter is going to describe the different levels of a Rasha now and why. We'll get to that in a minute. So everything in life and everything in the world has its opposition. Not necessarily is it always a bad thing, but there's always a mirror effect. So zelu mazeh, one is opposite the other. The Rasha who knows good is the antithesis of the tzaddik who knows evil. So this means that the good that's in the Rasha's divine soul, which means to say like this, everything that's good has a sliver of negativity in it, because since the sin of the chet, eitz hadas, since the sin of the eating of the tree of knowledge from Adam and Rishon, there's always something, a sliver, a vestige of not good or the opposite of good in it, even if it's minor, even if it can be controlled, hopefully. But in everything which we would call evil or bad on the other side, there's also a little good. Let's try to bring that out. I know you're going to argue with me. How could you say so? Okay, when they were a baby, they were good. There's always some way you could find good, especially if you look at it from that perspective. So the good that's in this, we're talking about the Rasha now, in his divine soul, which is in his brain. We talked about how the Nefesh Bahamis is, generally speaking, dwelling and stemming from the left side of the heart. The Nefesh Elikis starts in the brain, but also takes up the right side of the heart. So even in this Rasha's divine soul. So again, when we talk about Rasha, we're talking about a Yid, a person who knows better. He's just not acting the way he should. He's not fulfilling his responsibilities and his mandate to daven and to learn and to be treating others with kindness. Instead, he's doing, unfortunately, the opposite. And not only the opposite, but he's disturbing the people that are trying to daven and learn and be kind to others. So even in that person, he has some good in his mind, in his brain, and in the right side of his heart. But this good is completely subservient and nullified to the klipa, which is in the left side of the heart. So whatever good that's in him is absorbed and overpowered by his negative approach, by his animal soul and his Yetzer Hara. So thus, in the Rasha that knows good, and we talked about this from the onset, from the opening of the Tanya, that there's a tzaddik v'toiv lo, tzaddik v'raloi, a righteous person who's only good, and a tzaddik who has, a little sliver of evil that he is able to completely control. Then we have the Beinoni, which again, even in the Beinoni, we just say the Beinoni, but in the Beinoni, there's numerous levels. Then we have the Rasha, that the Rasha V'Tovlei, that he has a little good in him, and then Rasha V'Rali, which we didn't even get to yet. So this Rasha who knows good, the evil of his animal soul, overpowers the good of the divine soul. So he has some good in him, but we don't see it really coming out. We don't see it really being expressed. Again, don't forget, we have numerous levels within each level. But we're just touching on a few ideas here. We have all these different levels. There's one in whom the subservience and nullification of good to evil is exceedingly minor. So you have a tiny sliver of good. And even these minor degrees are not permanent, they're fleeting, Oh, this guy is nasty. And once in a while, you think you're about to hear him say something good, and then he starts, and then he stops. Only on frequent occasions does the evil prevail over the good, conquering the small city, meaning the body, as mentioned in chapter 9, is likened to a small city. So then you have people that are on the level of Rosh Hashanah, and sometimes it works different ways. Sometimes he's able to squeeze out a little bit of kindness, and he's able to do a mitzvah, and oh, this guy's in a good mood today. You're like shocked. And that nasty guy in the back that's always bothering you, I don't think here, the guy that's sitting on the train that never looks at you. I was telling a story yesterday at the Fabrengen in Shabbos. So I was once on a plane, the whole ride, from the second he got on, he was on Bluetooth on the phone. He was talking loud, and he was using foul language. And then the flight attendant came and asked him to close his computer, and he was like, okay, I'll close it when I'm ready. She didn't want to bother with him. And then the whole plane ride, he was on his computer, and he didn't really speak to us. Actually, didn't even think he was Jewish, but right at the end, he gets up and he started having a conversation. I was like, oh boy. He was actually very nice. He was very pleasant. Like at the end, he's like, I'm also Jewish. I'm like, oh boy, he's about to rip into us. And he's like, I'm searching for happiness. We had a whole conversation. He was just searching, and he's struggling. And he's like, I have pretty much everything I need, everything I want, but I just can't find happiness. Good question, right? So don't judge. You never know. A guy could have been going through a really tough time and a bad day, but he was exuding this aura of negativity, and then suddenly you saw that he was actually just somebody who was struggling. So even when the evil does conquer the body, yet not all of the body falls under its dominion, but only part of it. The evil subjugates the body, at least a part of the body, to its discipline, and causes it to be a chariot to the evil. Just as we want to be a chariot to Hashem, just like our avos were chariots to Hashem. Whatever Hashem told them to do, that's what they did. Period. End of story. They had no will or desire on their own. So sometimes the evil also takes hold and causes the body to just follow it blindly. Even to its detriment, over a cliff, into a wall, hurting it. And further causing that parts of the body serve as garments. We're in one of the animal souls, aforementioned 3 garments will be closed. Which garments are we talking about, Chavra? We're talking about the garments of thought, speech, and action. So when the animal soul takes charge and gets you to just follow its lead blindly, it prevails either in deed alone, that a person does something nasty, it's not nice. Why did you hit that guy? Why did you hit your friend? Right, Aiden? We don't do that. in the commission of minor transgressions, not only major ones, chas v'shalom. For his animal soul, it doesn't have the power to prevail to such an extent. We can't hold back. Okay, that's something that we do. Okay, it's not nice, but it's the lowest on the rung of garments. We have thought, speech, and action. That we can try to control. It's a little harder to control your speech. You're talking with friends and everybody's schmoozing and it's fun, and suddenly you start talking about this other guy that's not there. Oh, yeah, you want to hear something about him, what he did, and you just get carried away. And you start slandering and scoffing and making fun of him, and then suddenly he walks up in the middle of the conversation and you're all into it, and like, that's the guy. Then you start making fun of him to his face. What about in thought alone? You're supposed to be thinking about the words that you're saying during davening, and your mind is wandering and thinking all sorts of terrible thoughts. It's thinking evil thoughts could actually sometimes be even worse than actual sin. We'll just leave that for now. Thought is more refined than speech and action. And one of the soul's three garments, thought, speech, and action, is the one that's most intimately connected with the neshama. What did we say before? Where is the nefesh elikis? Where is the nefesh elikis generally dwelling? In the brain. Where are the evil thoughts trying to pervade and trying to overcome? The brain. So they're trying to attack the epicenter, the home base of the nefesh elikis. So therefore, contemplation of sin can obviously, we always say, "Amaisu ikir," don't do the bad deed or do the good deed. Just do the deed. If you have a chance to put on tefillin and with a guy who doesn't know anything and he's not kosher and he's not Shabbos and he's not whatever it is, just do the tefillin. You never know, this can trigger. Shliach was telling me on Shabbos that guy didn't want to put on tefillin. He was really, really resisting. He didn't really know his whole backstory. Heard a little bit. And he said, I took time for an hour to listen to you. I'm asking you for 5 minutes of your time to put on the tefillin. Okay, good point. I'll do it. Puts it on and he started crying and crying and crying, and all the whatever it was from the past came out. So sometimes just to do the deed, even if you don't put too much thought into it. So v'gam im eina meharer avera la'asoisa ela be'inyan zivug zachor nekeva b'olam. So this is the case even when one does not actually contemplate committing a sin, but merely indulges in contemplation of the union of zachar unekeva ba'olam. I'm going to keep it at that since we're being recorded. Sha'ived ala zara satira. And he violates you can explain it to your son if you want. He violates the admonition of the Torah. You should guard yourself from every wicked thing. So he's thinking impure thoughts. He's basically thinking impure thoughts of two individuals that are walking by, let's say. Not good. Or another area in which evil may prevail in the case of such a partial rasha, when a time fitting for Torah study, he turns his heart to other matters, frivolous matters, let's say. As it states in the Medrash in Pirkei Avos, he says, he who awakens at night when he has time to study Torah and he turns his heart to vanity is guilty against his own soul. Could sit down and learn a shtickle Torah and instead, we go watch a movie or something. I don't know. I'm not judging anyone. We all fall trap to this today, especially. In the latter two instances, the animal soul's garments of thought has prevailed and manifests itself in the body. Remember, there's a time and place for everything. So if it's a time to learn, that's not a time to go watch a show. But if you're at the end of the day and you're trying to wind down and go to sleep, maybe it is if it's kosher enough to watch. I'm not. We're not going to get into that. In any one of these instances, when he allows his mind to wander and to think really wicked, evil thoughts, gross things that are not nice, or if he has a chance to do something and to focus his mind on the words of the davening or the learning, he's called wicked at that time, the Alter Rebbe points out. It's not a wicked person. We all do it, but that's something that we did that's not appropriate, so we have to own up to it. This term, Rasha, meaning that the evil of his animal soul prevails within him, clothes itself in his body and induces the body, to sin and defile it. And afterwards, when he realizes, oh man, I let my mind wander, I said things I shouldn't have said, I even smacked the guy in the face, probably didn't deserve it, and even if he did, I shouldn't have done it anyway. So he feels bad. He's filled with remorse, and he has to resolve not to do it again. And what does he do? He seeks pardon. If he did something to someone else, he has to ask that person forgiveness. But he asks Hashem forgiveness for his transgression. Hashem will forgive him if he does it with sincerity. As long as a person has charata, has regret, and does tshuva properly, Hashem will forgive him, as explained in other places. So the Alter Rebbe has discussed the higher level of Rasha, the Rasha who knows good, a guy who, he fell victim to the Nefesh Bahamis and the Yetzer Hara. Yesh mishara goyver ba yoser. And there's another type of Rasha in whom the evil prevails more strongly. He doesn't even allow him to feel bad about what he did. Please, sure, thanks. You have the purple one? He doesn't allow him, thanks, have a good day. He doesn't allow him to even think that he did anything wrong, and he doesn't even let him get to the good. He's completely overtaken the person. The person you could say one day, that used to be a good guy, what happened to him? Now he's just, the way he speaks and the way he thinks and the way he acts, terrible. Make sure we're not one of these people, guys. He transgresses in thought, speech, as well as action, and also the evil causes him to commit very heinous sins and to sin frequently. Between sins, even if he experiences remorse and thoughts of tshuva enter his mind from the aspect of good that's still in his soul, that gathers a degree of strength in between. However, he doesn't have enough strength, even if he regrets it momentarily, he doesn't have enough strength to really fight the evil sufficiently. It's so hard for him to get rid of these sins and to be the one who asks Hashem forgiveness, to abandon them and stop doing them. Stop thinking these thoughts. That's not appropriate for you to think. Stop saying these things.
Go, you're on my tuchus.
Whoa. Okay. Maybe you're saying that to the Jeff, you're saying that to the Yetzer Hara, right? Get off of me. Got it. Concerning such a person, the rabbis of blessed memory have said that the wicked are full of remorse. When are they full of remorse? Between sins. And it's also possible that they regret what they did, but they're unable, they feel that they're stuck in a rut. They feel that they can't stop. It's almost, I think, I'm not an expert in this field, but it's almost the definition of an addict. A person just can't stop. They need help. They need help from outside sources. These represent the majority of the wicked in whose soul still linger There's a little bit of good in there, but they're completely overtaken by the evil within them. So that's sad. That's sad. That's a sad reality. They need a lot of help. They need a lot of chizuk. Instead of judging them, say, yeah, sometimes I'm there too. I know I know how you feel. It's a very, how should we say? It's a very, let me think of a word. It's a very anonymous, it's a very helpless feeling when you know what you're doing is wrong and you just can't seem to stop yourself. Then there's a level of a tzaddik who never feels regret. He doesn't even regret what he did. He convinces himself that he's right. And he doesn't care what anybody thinks. He doesn't care what God thinks. He doesn't care what his friends think. The previous level was a rush of a toivle in different categories. But now we have someone who just does evil. He may have some good in him, but it's completely trampled and completely, it's completely stamped out. It's almost like the embers, the little spark, at the end of a fire, you pour water and maybe there's a little tiny spark underneath, but you can't even find it. Only the evil in his soul remains in him, for having so prevailed over the good that the latter has departed from him. There's no good left. It left him. And the good now stands in a matter of makif over him. It hovers over him, so to speak. And he has no conscious awareness of the good that he initially had. He still possesses a little bit of of good, but in a surrounding way versus an internal way. Therefore, sages have said, over every gathering of any 10 Jews rests the Shekhinah. That's to say that even if they are all in the category of Rasha V'Ralai, wicked and evil, still godliness, the Shekhinah resides and rests upon them. Maybe not inside them. So I don't know. There's different ways to look at this. Either you stay far away from the person. If you think you could have an influence without being influenced yourself, maybe you could try. But these are people that don't recognize what they're doing is wrong and what they're saying is wrong. And they're not willing to admit that even what they're thinking is terrible and horrible and horrific. It's a very tough level. It's a very low level. But nevertheless, it's possible. It's possible that you just stay away from those people because they might have a bad influence in you. There's a saying, surround yourself with good, positive people. They'll lift you up. When you surround yourself with negative people, they're going to drag you down. But they're still Yidden, and they still need our help, and they still need to be uplifted, as we say, that even if they get together, the 10 Jews get together, these are the wicked people, then our sages say that the Shekhinah rests on them. So the takeaway is, let's just leave it at that for now. The takeaway for today is there are many levels of evil. One could be termed a Rasha. When we talk about its true definition, even if no one would call him a Rasha, you wouldn't want to say that guy's a Rasha. But you know for yourself, you could only judge yourself. And what does he do? He loses control in one area of his life. Just as we said before, that a person could have tzaddik moments, let's think of ourselves as good people, at least as aspiring Beinim, that everything we think and we say and we do comes out positive and is focused on God, even if we have internal struggles. But if we have moments where we do the wrong thing and we regret them, so we're not a Rasha, but we have evil-like moments spread out throughout the day, and we have to try to avoid those. It shouldn't allow us to be dejected. It shouldn't allow us to unravel and say, oh, that's it, I'm a terrible, wicked person. Everything is farfallen. Everything is worthless. No. We say, you know what? Had a weak moment. The Yetzer Hara is very strong. It was victorious to enter my brain and to, and that's what we have to say. The Torah tries to set up guardrails. If you don't look at things that you shouldn't look at, you have a better hope and chance that your mind won't be thinking inappropriate thoughts. So we try to do the best we can. And at the very least, we've set aside times to learn like we're doing now. And we set aside times to daven as our sages have instituted. And at least in those times, we're thinking about Hashem. And even if we have a little disturbance in our thought, we could redirect them and refocus them by looking in the words and translating the words and thinking about the words. And that should also manifest itself in times of learning and at times of doing mitzvahs, sitting around the table, eating the Shabbos meal with our family, or at a farbrengen, or whatever mitzvah that we're doing, going and visiting somebody in the hospital or delivering food to somebody who's shut in, or whatever it might be. We try to build on those moments and carry those moments with us to make sure that our thought, our speech, and our action are directed towards Hashem. And when those moments do happen, which is natural and normal, you shouldn't feel like, oh, we're the worst person on the face of the earth. We should just realize that because we have so much good in us, we could ask Hashem for forgiveness. And if we did something to hurt somebody else, we ask him for forgiveness or her for forgiveness. And then we move on. And it's not that we are a Rasha, but we may have a Rasha-like moment. A Rasha-like or a Rasha-light moment. Light as in like not heavy. And then we, as we say, what happens when you're walking outside and a bird makes on you? You wipe it off and you keep on moving. What are you going to do? Sit on the floor and cry? No. So when something like this happens to you and it gets into your head or it comes out of your mouth or it's part of whatever you were doing. So as we say in Yiddish, Yuda, vish up and geh weiter. Wipe it off and move on. And hopefully we do better next time. So Chaver, that's the lesson for today. We have a job to do and we know we can do it. We just have to put our minds and our hearts and our effort into it. And we can fulfill everything that Hashem wants from us and for us. Because this thing, these are practical things that we have to deal with on a regular basis. Our thought, our speech, and our action. We can focus them and direct them towards godliness and towards the Kodesh Baruch Hu. We just have to put in the effort. Have a good day, and thank you all for joining us. And a special shout out and thanks to my assistant rabbi, Aiden Sigler. Have a good day, guys.
Bye.